Good morning, one and all, and welcome back to another day here at the Damage Report as we close out this week with me, Iadarola, and Brett Erlich, host.
What up, everybody?
How's it going?
Hi, I'm Brett from Happy Half Hour. I speak over John all the time. Get used to it. How are you doing this morning, John?
I noticed. I'm good. This has been a big week. We're gonna close it off with a very fun show. We actually have a lot of stories that look, we're gonna be starting off the show with just my favorite sort of news right now. It is campaign related. It is vaguely substantive, but it's just so much fun. And I found a way to get us to talk about not one, but two movies on the show today. It's pretty much all I want. I want to do a combination movie review show and a weekly WWE breakdown show. If I could slowly convert TDR over to that, I think we'll really have something. But anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I really like talking about movies, John. I watch them.
You do.
I used to be a host of the Rotten Tomato show, so you can think of me as a expert in this field, no matter how much I get factually wrong.
That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But anyway, very glad to have you here and all of you out there as well. Thank you for watching and or listening to the thing that we're doing right now. We do appreciate your support. And if you would like to reach out to us individually, I know a few different ways that you can do that. You can send us a comment, a tweet, a super chat, or other sorts of things, generally in text form. That's how we prefer to get it. And you can let us know of what's happening out there in the news, respond to the stories we're talking about, maybe make a little joke. And if your comment is awesome and or funny enough, you might have a chance at a $100 Blue Apron gift card. I am begging you to give me an excuse to give one away today. So let's see if that happens. And of course, hit the like button so that people know we're live. With all that said, Brett, are you ready to start the fun?
Whether I am or not, you've been more than fair. You wanted me to talk for more time. Now I have. Mr. Loves to sip coffee.
No. There was a combination of
sexy
an
and
interesting
cute
comment that I want to make sure that we talk about in the break, and then I was sipping. I was mid sip. But with that said, let's talk not about drinking, but about eating with this.
Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding. DeSantis has his dirty fingers all over senior entitlements, like cutting Medicare, slashing Social Security, even raising our retirement age. Tell Ron DeSantis to keep his pudding fingers off our money. Oh, and somebody get this man a spoon.
Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
There is a case to be made that is the greatest political advertisement ever in the history of our republic. It was produced by Trump's campaign, and it was the puddingest political ad I've ever seen. But I love that, Brett. I have never seen a headline and made the decision to put it in the show faster than for that.
Yeah,
what do you think about the pudding ad? As
this
it will
is the
be
rare
come to be called.
It's the rare start with the X block. Audible John pulled this morning. There was much discussion in the pre-production, and needless to say, I was a big flan of this. And yeah, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. This is the second.
That's gonna put him in trouble.
I really love this because of the obvious poop imagery.
I mean,
it is on the tip of everyone's tongue when they're trying to really put their finger in what the imagery is all about. Ron DeSantis, the 3-finger poop scoop. You got some Cosby imagery. Rudy, stop with the jello.
The guy was going for it, man. He was digging in there. And honestly, like his fingers entering the pudding smeared cup that's probably ruined significant portions of my life from now on. But it was the cups at the end. Like it wasn't just that he ate the pudding with 3 fingers, but this dude goes through like 8 of them. That seems like too much. But look, the honest reason why I love this is it is as evocative imagery as I can imagine. You might remember the poop ad of the 2022 campaign where it was raining poop. Was that an anti-Boebert ad? It might have been. But anyway, so the imagery is strong, but it wasn't just making fun of him for eating pudding with 3 fingers or whatever. It was tied to his obvious past support for cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those sorts of things. So it was like it was childish, obviously, in the way that we might expect for Donald Trump, but it was actually about substance. Like that sort of ad should have been made and run by Democrats. Like why aren't they running stuff like that? Like let's get more of those sorts of ads in the future, as long as they're honest, as this seems to be, and it is actually about substance.
Yeah, I think that there is a special place in heaven for everyone who can make an ad like this. Taking something that, and it really is a talent to take something that's kind of floating out there, something obscure, something weird, and use it to define someone. And now, no matter what you try to do, when you think of Ron DeSantis and you live in this place, it's simultaneously, in a rare move for Donald Trump, is a policy advocacy position about protecting seniors, because it's Florida, Social Security and Medicare. Those are 2 things that the giant retiree community in Florida doesn't know they should be mad at DeSantis about. This is the move, as you say, that the Democrats should be able to execute a lot better.
I now, coming out of this, I'm wondering, is it Ron de Snack Pack or is it just pudding Ron? Honestly, maybe that's why he backed off of meatballs, because he knew he had this in his back pocket.
I would call him pudding fingers.
Pudding fingers Ron. Like if he stands on the debate stage and calls him old pudding fingers, like that is how you define a person. And by the way, like if you are watching this and you are a big fan of Ron DeSantis, first of all, that's weird. But second of all, like you need to appreciate the days ahead as much as possible, because you may not know, but there is going to be nothing left of Ron DeSantis by the time this is over. That was an awesome ad, but that wasn't cruel. It is gonna get so rough for Ron DeSantis. They are gonna have people who used to go to his rallies openly mocking him on social media, making memes, making videos of him. So just get ready for that. Ron DeSantis isn't even running for president yet, and he is being attacked more viciously than generally we see in the closing days of the general election. I don't know what is going on over there, Brett.
I wanna show you my favorite like grody political ad in history. I don't even remember who this is from, but it was similar imagery, and it's about gas prices. And it is this, just watch some of the imagery. All these guys are mad at the big oil exec, who then starts peeing on them.
Oh my God.
And he pees on them with gasoline.
Okay,
and
it's gasoline, everyone.
A joke about it. Why is he so mad? It's just gasoline. Don't be mad, it's not pee, it's gasoline. And this is if it was the candy bar lobby, it would look like they're pooping on him. That's an old viral video film school. Everybody go to youtube.com/viral videos to watch old videos that I made way back in the day.
You gotta throw some of those up on TikTok, little sections of it. I think it'd be fun. Anyway, thank you, Donald Trump, for bringing a bit of fun to our Friday. Oh, Ron DeSantis. There was a report that came out that Ron DeSantis is like begging people in the Florida congressional delegation to stop endorsing Trump. Oh,
it's
little
so
dearie,
pathetic.
What are you doing?
He's such a pathetic wiener boy, and not just the grossness of finger swabbing his like chocolate pudding, but also the imagery of the pudding pack really will underscore what a little boy Ron DeSantis
It is little boy. It is little boy behavior.
Can you? And then please, can you not endorse Daddy Trump? Me.
That's what it seems like. He's gonna make him Lil Ron, because there's no excuse for eating like that unless he's like trying to rule out prostate cancer for the pudding pack. I don't know, but anyway, we'll have more to say about pudding and the fingers that scoop it in the upcoming days. But for now, we do need to move to arguably more important news, I suppose. Let's turn to this. Within the last week, we thought that we had come to grips with the corruption of Clarence Thomas and his relationship with billionaire right-wing mega donor Harlan Crow. Turns out ProPublica was just getting started, because what they dropped in the last 24 hours is amazing. We're not talking about just gifts being given to Clarence Thomas over time and the donations to his wife, Ginny Thomas. No, direct transfers of money from a right-wing billionaire who has long-term designs on remaking the American judiciary to a sitting Supreme Court justice. Here is some amazing work by ProPublica. In 2014, one of Texas billionaire Harlan Crow's companies purchased a string of properties on a quiet residential street in Savannah, Georgia. I'm reading this at length because I love the way that they set the scene. It wasn't a marquee acquisition for the real estate magnate, just an old single-story home and 2 vacant lots down the road. What made it noteworthy were the people on the other side of the deal: Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his relatives. And this is where it gets dirty. Increasingly dirty in multiple layers. First of all, they paid $133,000, $133,363 to the 3 co-owners, one of which was Clarence Thomas, one was his mother, and the family of Thomas's late brother. But that wasn't all. After they paid that, as you're gonna find, large amount of money for this particular property, contractors began work on tens of thousands of dollars of improvements on the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, which looks out onto a patch of orange trees. Very nice. The renovations included a carport, a repaired roof, and a new fence and gates, according to city permit records and blueprints. So they paid the $133,000 to buy it, Harlan Crow's company. Then they did what some people say is $36,000 in improvements. Here's the amazing thing. Harlan Crow, it turns out, doesn't live at that property. I know you're shocked. You probably thought that that's where the billionaire lived. No, you know who lives there? Clarence Thomas's mother. Still, to this day, lived in the house before the sale and has lived in the house, according to neighbors who talked to ProPublica, for the 9 years since then, which is, when you think about it, a little bit odd. That a billionaire has bought this property, put tons of money into the property, and apparently allowed the mother of a Supreme Court justice to live in this now improved property for years and years for free. But that's not all. Crow also bought the house immediately next door to Thomas's mother, which was owned by somebody else and had been known for parties and noise. They tore the house down. That's a nice little benefit for the mother of Clarence Thomas. Don't gotta worry about those parties anymore. Now, here's the, I guess, shocking thing. There are almost no regulations, ethical, disclosure-wise or otherwise, on Supreme Court justices. It turns out, though, he actually went so far that he found a way to trip over one of the few disclosure requirements, which is that when you sell real estate over $1,000, you do actually have to disclose that. He never disclosed the sale of the Savannah properties. There's a disclosure form actually that he did file that year for other stuff, and on that, it has a space to report the identity of buyers in any private transaction. That space is blank. I think we can all figure out why. So this right-wing billionaire paid what appears to be significantly more than the going market rate for a property of a family member of Clarence Thomas, partially owned by Clarence Thomas, put in a huge amount of money into approving it, removed other things in the area that then could be built up, and real estate developers have put a lot of money into building up that area. Now making it a nicer neighborhood for Clarence Thomas's mom, and has allowed her to live there for literally years. If this seems corrupt, if this seems like bribery, if this seems like a massive issue, that's because it 100% is. Brett, what do you think?
Well, John, this is what friends do with friends. Friends buy, they don't expect anything in return, especially friends that show up after you're in a position of power and woo you and your family and give your friends just do this kind of stuff for you. And there should be no sacrifice made by someone who becomes a Supreme Court justice. There should be no recusals. There should be no sense of responsibility for anything but yourself. Good friends, the way you know a friend is that they buy your mom's house and kick out the neighbors next door, level that house if it was even remotely close to a nuisance, and put tens of thousands of dollars into renovations and kind of seemingly obfuscate who is actually doing it. That's just what friends do, John. Did you not watch the show Friends?
I thought that I had. I mean, they did live in a really nice apartment. I thought that I understood
which
Friends.
belonged
I guess I've never
to Monica's grandmother. I think is the Lord to justify how they could live in that fancy apartment.
So he appears to have violated federal law. Will that matter? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it probably will, but it's like, you can't do this. This is insane. You're receiving a check from a billionaire. Like, you can't, like, can we have some expectation of ethics from amongst the singly most powerful people in our country who have lifetime appointments and the ability to rule on almost anything in American society?
Well, John, obviously Harlan Crow, who I think was the first headmaster of Slytherin House, obviously he put out a statement that made total sense and filled in all the blanks in a way that sounded totally above board. Go ahead.
I think that you're probably right, and I do want to. We have to be fair, do we not? That's why people come to TDR, because we're fair. So let's talk about that. The new revelation that Harlan Crow paid a bunch of money to Clarence Thomas for real estate that he then let Clarence Thomas's mother continue to live in has resulted in no statement yet from Clarence Thomas, but the right-wing billionaire has put out a statement. Crow said that he purchased Thomas's mother's house, where Thomas spent part of his childhood, to preserve it for posterity. Quote, "My intention is to one day create a public museum at the Thomas home dedicated to telling the story of our nation's second Black Supreme Court justice. I approached the Thomas family about my desire to maintain this historic site so future generations could learn about the inspiring life of one of our greatest Americans." Well, if you wanted to preserve it, then why did you change it? That's interesting. ProPublica asked Crow about the additions on Thomas's mother's house, like the new carport, which was not there when Clarence Thomas grew up. Quote, "Improvements were also made to the Thomas property to preserve its long-term viability and accessibility to the public." What in the GD hell are you talking? Are you implying that the carport is there for visitors to the museum to park in, assuming they come one at a time? That is such garbage, Brad.
Harlan, if all like historical preservation museum type places were run the way you're running the future Clarence Thomas Heritage Museum, when you went to Monticello, instead of a dumbwaiter, there would be a smart TV. Instead of a lazy Susan, there would be like a connected refrigerator and state-of-the-art appliances. That is not how anyone runs any of those things. My mom grew up in Hollywood in a place where they're like, we have to preserve it. The bare minimum. It's a part of Hollywood that they're like, it's old and and their rule is you can't change the outside of the house. You grew up in the Nightmare on Elm Street house. By law, you can do whatever you want to the inside, but you can't change the outside of it to preserve it for like the historical vibe of the neighborhood. He changed the outside, which is the thing that traditionally everybody is forced in these kinds of situations to keep the same. Why? Because guys, let's be honest, let's call it what it is. He is giving out favors.
Yep.
And hilariously, those favors are, if you thought Harlan Crow's name sounded made up, the fact that he is doing all this stuff should blow your mind and feel like a work of fiction, that if you saw it in like the White House Plumbers on HBO, you'd think it was a bridge too far.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, like I don't know what can potentially come of this, but it is so obvious, so blatant. It's gone on for so long. If you cannot get anything from this, then that is as strong a signal as can be sent to the Supreme Court. Flame on, do anything you want. Like Kagan can just say, hey, Soros, write me a check for $5 million right now. And what are they supposed to do? He's just trying to preserve the long-term viability of her bank account.
Right,
the final point goes to you.
Right, the miners' helmets that people on the right have to like dig through Hunter Biden's laptop to try to find some kind of connection. And if they do to corruption, flame on, guys. I don't care.
Yeah.
It makes it so hypocritical and so ridiculous that they cannot see the searchlights that are like promoting the impropriety here at the Clarence Thomas estate in Savannah, Georgia.
100%. Okay, everybody, we've got more fun to come, including a bunch of Republicans running as fast as they can from their own positions on abortion after this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Damage Report. You know what you can do right now? You can buckle up for more news, but also hit the like button so that people know that we're live, assuming that you're listening to this live. People in the podcast are like, I want to, but I can't. Yeah, but you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Did you know that TDR has been like tearing up the government podcast charts? You can be a part of that. Anyway, I also want to let you know that coming up later today, I will be leading the first hour of the Young Turks with Cenk Uygur and Jordan Yule. Yeah. Maybe we'll be talking about pudding. I hope so. Anyway, with that said, why don't we talk about something even more important, starting with this.
Yes, sir.
Would you support a federal ban on abortions?
I would simply say that the fact of the matter is when you look at the issue of abortion, one of the challenges that we have, we continue to go to the most restrictive conversations without broadening the scope and taking a look at the fact that I'm 100% pro-life. I never walk away from that. But the truth of the matter is that when you look at the issues on abortion, I start with the very important conversation I had in a banking hearing.
Okay, so that's Tim Scott. I want you to bear in mind as we analyze the answer that you just saw there to a very simple question, that Tim Scott launched an exploratory committee for the 2024 Republican presidential bid just 2 days ago. He's running for president. Okay, so that answer was from a guy who was running for president. He was asked, do you support a federal ban on abortion? And he said, I'm gonna answer very simply by talking about in a conversation I had about a banking thing. He also said, okay, so the issue is that we go to like the most radical positions, and I guess that's bad. Also, I'm 100% pro-life, which I think would be the most radical position. But you'll notice he didn't go from I'm 100% pro-life to yes, I will support a federal ban on abortion. He doesn't actually want to say what his position is. Interestingly, this has become a bit of a pattern. In a separate clip posted online by CBS News on Wednesday, he was asked if he would support banning abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, per a proposal by Lindsey Graham. He said, I would say this, I am certainly 100% pro-life without any question. I do think we spend not enough time understanding how far the far left has gone on the issue of abortion. So I'm gonna answer very simply by, again, not answering. And here's the thing, you might think, well, maybe he just doesn't wanna be specific. But that's actually not the case, because when he was asked about a 20-week ban, he said 20-week ban, definitely. So I think we know what his official position is. He's not going to publicly support a total ban. He's not going to support a 15-week ban, but a 20-week ban, definitely. And I also want to leave you with this. Don't be reassured that that means that if he somehow became president, which is literally never going to happen, that then they wouldn't do it. A guy who will not come out and say that he's in support of it is not necessarily a guy who's gonna stop it from being signed into law. He just understands better than some Republicans that taking those positions publicly is incredibly unpopular right now. Right, what do you think?
I'll tell you what else is unpopular in the Republican Party. Answers that sound like that. It has become a vibe check party.
Yeah, it has.
They're not mad at him for what position he ends up taking. They're mad at politicians for talking like that and assuming that the voters don't notice exactly what they're doing. Exploratory committee itself is stupid, because what he's exploring is whether there is a combination of words that, if repeated ad nauseum, will result in people not paying attention. That's his goal. He just wants to focus on anything else. And this is important, guys and gals and everyone. The reason that trans issues have become so front and center for the Republican Party, and that critical race theory has become so front and center for the Republican Party, is they need something to replace that wedge issue of abortion. Because A, they caught the car that they were chasing, and B, now that the policy of Roe versus Wade has changed, abortion is a losing issue for them. So they need an issue that Republicans who have no actual skin in the game whatsoever can look down on other people from a position of presumed moral superiority because they're killing the kids or transing the kids or screwing up the kids in ways that we as parents need to protect the innocent from. And then behind the scenes, the Republicans go off and pass they'll throw a bone to you based on whatever frenzy they whipped you up into. And then they'll go and pass their actual agenda, which is tax cuts for the rich, for their government handouts for their donors, and basically deregulation in industry that results in poisoning and actual spontaneous abortion, as it's called, when you lose a pregnancy because of the pollution that their deregulation caused in your area.
Yeah, they need to construct at all times. I think you're 100% right. They have to put together a construct that lets them appear to be telling it like it is, while all the time not actually saying what they mean. Like they came up with wokeness and the trans stuff so that they could attack the LGBTQ community. And in that area, I think that they're actually feeling emboldened enough that they can literally just say we should eradicate the community. They talk about CRT because they want to be able to just come out and say there should not be black people. You should not have a black person in a movie. You shouldn't have a black person in a political campaign. Corporations should not have them in advertisements. When I see them in a commercial, it makes me vomit. They know that they can't say that, so they get to speak very strongly and directly about CRT. They're weaseling out of their actual bigoted positions to some extent, but they need to be able to come out and say it. And on abortion, they just don't feel comfortable anymore. And I want to demonstrate someone who is at least willing to admit that. Let's jump directly into Sean Hannity.
Politically, it's a divisive issue, and understand that I believe in the sanctity of life. I'm pro-life.
Same.
However, politically speaking, it is a death sentence for candidates, especially in swing states. You cannot win.
Choose before they even start voting. Yep.
Okay.
So that is Sean Hannity admitting that being honest as a right winger about what you think and what you intend to do when it comes to abortion is a death sentence. And so he is, I guess, being bold for a Republican in admitting that and trying to advise Republicans to back off of their actual positions. Now, that's where I guess the boldness or the self-reflection ends, because theoretically, coming to grips with the fact that a position that you hold and that virtually everyone politically that agrees with you holds is so unpopular that you can't win an election if you hold it, doesn't make you think, well, then maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe it's wrong in a representative democracy to push positions that people don't agree with, that is so toxic that it will end your career. There's none of that sort of self-reflection. They're still gonna do it, they're just being a little bit more quiet about it. Actually, we have a great example of that from just the last 24 hours. Ron DeSantis, just yesterday, signed into law Florida's 6-week abortion ban. In most cases, a 6-week abortion ban is just outlawing abortion. That's what it is. For the vast majority of people, the 6 number is irrelevant. You can't get an abortion in most situations there. And yet he did it in a closed door thing, just super fast. I mean, he signed it. They sent out a tweet, but that was it. A Republican governor in Florida, a big important state, just criminalized abortion for virtually everyone in all cases. And he is not making a big deal out of it, because even he gets, the culture warrior himself, Ron DeSantis, gets that this is not popular and people don't actually want this outside of a Republican primary. We're in a weird place in a democracy if you feel the need to keep doing this, understanding that people do not want you to do that. What do you think, Brett?
I appreciate the honesty amid the dishonesty, is that they're admitting that they're anti-freedom Republicans. They're anti-freedom and they're anti-democracy. They're anti-direct in this scenario with abortion rights. What they're doing is saying, you know what most people want? Even in the reddest of states like Kansas, when we ask them, do you want abortion rights or do you want to lose your freedom? The people of Kansas said, I want my abortion rights and I want my freedom. And if you want an abortion ban, this is something that like the polling also bears out. If you want an abortion ban, reinstate Roe versus Wade. Because Roe versus Wade was an abortion ban. It was an abortion ban past the point of viability, which is what they're asking for. But it also did something else. It preserved freedom for all Americans. They are against freedom. They are against democracy. That makes them kind of evil. I hate to say it, but and the reason I feel comfortable saying it, where they don't feel comfortable saying it, is I know most of America is with me.
Yeah.
But Roe versus Wade said you have freedom until the child is viable on its own, which is the third trimester. That was what Roe versus Wade. And when you bring that up to Republicans and conservatives, their brains melt that Roe versus Wade was an abortion ban. So they would get their cake and eat it too and not lose elections if they just went back and reinstated Roe versus Wade. They would stop losing these elections.
Can I demonstrate how much of a problem this is going to be, not just in current elections, but going forward? Take a look at this chart of what people think about abortion rights. This is all Americans and then contrasting 18 to 29-year-olds. Again, like people support these rights for any reason, by the way. This is the most, most liberal stance on it. Young Americans are at what, 65% or whatever? It's like less than a quarter of young Americans actually don't agree. Some are uncertain or whatever. That is a big problem going forward. They want to have their fascism and eat it too. They want to do this stuff and then not let you know that this stuff is going on, or at least distract you so much that you're not thinking about it. In the last couple of elections, it doesn't seem to have been working, especially in this last midterm, but they're gonna continue to try to fight in that way.
It sucks that since they invented Turning Point USA,
yeah,
the stance on which is supposed to win all these young people over to conservative thought, they have lost 15 points in this issue. So Charlie Kirk just lost 15 points.
It's accelerating
among young Americans.
I would love to know what happened in 2005. I actually don't know. It did seem to dip quite a bit. Was it a wording change in that year? I don't know. That seems weird. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to one more topic of what we have of this block. The backlash against Republicans in Tennessee for at least briefly expelling Representatives Justin Jones and Justin Pearson continues. And I have a feeling that the recently leaked audio of their behind the scenes conversation about the actual votes is probably not gonna make things better for them. Here's a little bit of a conversation that happened internally after one of their members flipped and decided to expel the two Justins, but not the white woman of the three, Gloria Johnson. Take a look at this.
The only way we move forward with some sort of unity is to call out what happened on the House floor the other night. Yes, sir. I feel like we were hung out to dry by a couple of members. And Jody, I'm just gonna say it here because you signed a letter. You straight up came to me and said you were 100% where I was. And you went on the House floor and you did the opposite. Man, you hung us out to dry. And I like you personally, this is not personal. And if Brian Terry was here, I'd say the same thing to him. This would have been bad anyway, but good God, we brought the racism into it because you didn't stay with us. But I need to know, and I don't want to hear why there wasn't a preponderance of evidence or an attorney. I need to know why you flipped your vote at the last minute. You didn't let them know beforehand. Giving Johnny a 15-minute heads up doesn't cut it.
So that person that's being lambasted right there had voted to expel the two Justins, but then flipped and was the one vote necessary to stop Gloria Johnson from being knocked out there. And they are furious. You hung us out to dry. You didn't give us enough warning. You said you were on it, and I'll even believe that that's true. They'd previously said that they would vote for all three. But what I love, the best part of that, and we have another video, but the money quote from that is, it was gonna be bad, but you made it worse. Follow-up question, why was it gonna be bad? Maybe because it was bad? Like, why do you think people were gonna freak out that you were throwing out two of the youngest legislators in the state? Why do you think that was going to have a negative reaction, and why is it so much worse? Now, the fact that racism has been brought into this, as we'll get into, I don't think that vote was what brought racism into it. I think it took away a little bit of your cover. I think that you considered Gloria Johnson to be a convenient sacrifice to provide some cover against accusations of racism, but you would have never been in this situation for it to be bad, let alone worse, if not for the racism inherent in the situation. Brett, what do you think?
God, I love leaked audio so much because the good guy's not the good guy in this situation. The one that voted against throwing her out did it for like the pettiest, dumbest reasons, in conjunction with that was basically like, you guys didn't let me ask questions. Now, it is decent. The questions he was asking were like, hey, can I draw a line from what happened to why we're kicking her out and follow all the legal steps, is what he's complaining he didn't get a chance to really pin down. But yeah, everyone in this story sucks farts, which is my favorite segment on Happy Half Hour. Everybody sucks. They are all sitting there being like, the only way this would have worked is if we all did it together, so they couldn't single out any one of us for being the worst. And one guy steps back because he didn't like get called on. And suddenly we're able to say, you know what? The only people that got kicked out of here were young black men, and you let the older white woman stay. It's bad optics. They know it because it's so clear. And watching these guys talk about how they're saving the republic in the rest of this clip is just the weird sanctimony that has popped up and is definitely fascist. And because they're actually breaking the rules and pretending they're enforcing them, because they could have just censured these people and instead of kicking them out, which was an insane thing to do when the purpose of the protest was to protect children's lives, which is something that I thought the Republicans were all about.
Yeah, but only against illusory threats. You brought up that other video though, so why don't we move now to that, the leaked audio.
We voted, I hit the green vote because that's what I'm there for. Then we get into the floor and immediately the questions start coming up about the resolution. I know what she did. I know what she did, broke the rules. And I know that she deserves to be expelled. We gotta do it right.
I think the problem I'm having is if we don't stick together, if you don't believe we're at war for our republic, with all love and respect to you, you need a different job. The left wants Tennessee so bad because if they get us, the Southeast falls, and it's game over for the republic.
That is amazing. So we're in a war for the republic against people speaking through bullhorns. It's a regular, attack on Pearl Harbor type of moment. And then also, so like they'll talk about it being like about these bigger things, like this is about the republic, this is about saving things, but also the left wants Tennessee. So he voted to expel them. So presumably the way that you stop the left getting Tennessee is to expel Democratic members of the legislature. Wait, I thought this was a principled stand. It seems like you just want to stop Democrats from having representation because you want Tennessee to be Republican. Like again, he is revealing what the actual motivations. It's not about the rules being broken. It's not about the bullhorn. It's wait, we have an opportunity to potentially get rid of some Democrats, even though they didn't stop to think about it for the 5 minutes necessary to figure out, wait, what happens after we expel them? Oh, they become members immediately and we dramatically raise their national platform and profile. But anyway, that's it. It was a callous political decision that they believed would increase their power, but is obviously gonna have the opposite result. Brett, final point goes to you.
It is a high school, like lunch table type conversation. But on Wednesdays we wear swastikas for these little fascists. And what hilarious is that this guy Sapicki,
it's a great name for Greece, by the way.
He was he's a football player from he was on the practice squad as a punter for like the Vikings and the Bengals, which is hilarious because he's in like state legislature stuff, doing like total practice squad level like hijinks, bad news bears performances, and it really shows. I wish so he also chose to punt on the issue of throwing out the white lady.
Their only job is to tell the truth. And yet tonight, the news media are celebrating the capture of the kid who told Americans what's actually happening in Ukraine. They are treating him like Osama bin Laden, maybe a little worse, actually, because unlike Al-Qaeda, apparently this kid is a racist.
Okay, so that is Tucker Carlson talking about the 21-year-old Jack Texera, IT specialist with the Air National Guard, who leaked all these documents having to do with the war effort in Ukraine on Discord. He has since been arrested, and during his arrest, he was, as was pointed out by Tucker Carlson, treated worse than Osama bin Laden, who was shot so many times. His brains and blood and organs were splattered all over his compound as he was shot and then disposed of. And it was worse for Jack Teixeira, who was arrested and brought in. I'm gonna be completely honest, Brett, before we start talking about this, I don't know why, because I care a lot about what's going on in Ukraine. I don't care about this leak at all. It probably reflects poorly on me. I'm sure it's really important. I don't care, like when Eric Swalwell or whatever is like, this guy's a traitor. I don't like throw, like, yeah, he leaked the stuff or whatever. I feel like everybody has a totally contingent view on leaking. Tucker Carlson has attacked leakers before. He attacked Edward Snowden before. We're gonna get to Marjorie Greene. They were freaking out that maybe Alvin Bragg leaked a detail about Trump's arraignment 60 minutes before it was public news. They were losing, he should go to jail. And now every right winger believes this guy's the biggest hero ever. I don't have a dog in the fight. I really don't care at all. But the idea that he was treated worse than a guy who was riddled with bullets seems like a bridge too far, a bin Laden too far for me. What do you think?
It's really, for most people interacting with the news, they want to take the news, understand something about it that they can then insert into their prevailing worldview cleanly, easily. That's what Tucker Carlson's doing. He's saying, yes, there is a leaker. And rather than saying, is it a whistleblower? Did they do it on purpose? Are they revealing things we should know about or not know about? And then going from there and finding out if this was in the public's best interests, he doesn't want to do that. So he's gonna say this plus Osama bin Laden, and then hope Marjorie Taylor Greene inserts like, what was his religion, race, and color? And then they'll go and just allow people to go on living the way that they were living, knowing that the news makes sense in the way that they view it.
Exactly. Well, look, Marge did do that, tweeting Jake Teixeira. His name's Jack. Does she even care? I don't know. Jake Teixeira is white, male, Christian, and anti-war. That makes him an enemy to the Biden regime. And he told the truth about troops being on the ground in Ukraine and a lot more. Okay, and then she goes on blah, blah, blah. By the way, Tucker Carlson said that his revelation, there were, I think, 14 American troops on the ground conducting training. They're not fighting Russians. He says it means that we're in a hot war with Russia. No, it doesn't. That's not what it actually means. And you know what I love? I love when the right has an opportunity to play cosplay on an issue, being able to pretend that they have a position they don't. She's like, he's anti-war, and so am I. And it's so hard for us when we're anti-war because we want to pull out of Ukraine. I also want to invade Mexico, but let's forget about that for now. I'm anti-war. I want to invade our southern neighbor, but I'm anti-war. So look, that's why Tucker Carlson is defending the guy too. He thinks, I don't even know exactly why this is the interpretation, but the idea is that the leaked documents make the war effort in Ukraine look bad. I guess, I don't know. I really don't care. I can't stress that enough. And thus, him leaking it is good for people who want our support for Ukraine to end, and Tucker wants the support to end. So in this case, he can support the leaks. I guess, like all of that seems like such big leaps of logic. Look, I personally think that there are a lot of cases in American history where the only reason we got an accurate idea of what's going on is thanks to the often courageous efforts of whistleblowers. Is this an example of it? Maybe. I think it's a little bit too early to say since we don't know his motivation. And it's not like he released it to The Intercept or something. He just posted it on a Discord, and I guess it got out from there. So it just seems like a really muddled thing that they are trying, as Brett pointed out, to create a pure version of the story for conservative consumption.
Yeah, I love the Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet that's like, I'm a champion for Jake Teixeira, whoever. Like, it reminds me one time, yeah. It's like if she gets your name wrong, she doesn't care about you. She just doesn't. She's using you as a political pawn, and then she's saying Jake Teixeira is a white male Christian and anti-war. Like, so are you backing Chelsea Manning? Like, is it if Chelsea Manning was like cis, would that make her like more on the level for you? No, she is racially profiling. She is profiling these people, and she's picking heroes to have. Listen, a lot of people are anti-war, and she isn't even taking a moment to really understand the full scope of all this stuff. And this was an accidental leak anyway. Homeboy was just trying to say something on a Discord to win a fight,
to get cred or whatever, maybe. Yeah, like, is she asserting that if it was a black woman who'd leaked it on Discord, that Biden would be like, oh, well, that's cool, then we're not gonna lock you up? Just doesn't make any sense. As you point out, if she gets the name wrong, she doesn't care about you. If she gets spelling and grammar wrong, she's trying her best. All right. Anyway, with that said, let's move to one more story with the few minutes we have remaining, starting with this.
We have a definition, and they're the ones that are saying this definition applies to them. Well, if it means erasing a community because you have to target children, well, damn right we ought to do it. I just don't think you have to inherently say because you're lesbian or gay that you want to target children. I find that statement to be offensive to them.
That is State Representative Randy Fine, Florida Republican, facing backlash over his anti-drag law. That was a weird little backtracking that he did in the middle of his own soundbite, where he's like, you shouldn't say that just because someone's gay or lesbian, they're targeting kids. But I just finished saying I will wipe out a community if they're targeting kids, which I think they are, but we shouldn't be saying that. Anyway, specifically what he's trying to do here is he has this new bill that does not specifically target drag performances, but it's obvious that that's what he's trying to do. Opponents say the legislation is meant to target drag and could effectively shutter local pride parades as well. His proposed legislation defines, quote, adult live performances as any show, exhibition, or other presentation in front of a live audience, which in whole or in part depicts or simulates nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or specific sexual activities. But here is the interesting thing. In the same way that we were profiling earlier this week with the anti-groomer Republican who is hitting on his like just out of high school interns, this guy has a sultry performance skeleton lurking in his closet. His wife does these charity galas. There's one coming up soon, actually, and it in fact says it's gonna feature sultry performers. Wouldn't that potentially run afoul of your thing? Well, let's jump into the evidence. So local news site, the Space Coast Rocket, was first to report on the forthcoming Saturday event, as well as Wendy Fine's previous role as an apparent performer in the 2021 gala, during which female dancers were photographed wearing revealing costumes and what appeared to be lingerie. You can see a photo here of a saucy little dance number. Here are some of the performers like posing for a photo together. Now, Representative Fine is listed as one of the gala's prominent sponsors. He apparently has never come out against these events. In fact, he's supporting them financially. He says he's been there several times and he can't remember a child ever being there, so get off his back. Also, it isn't an inexpensive ticket and it's not billed as family friendly. So I guess if it costs a lot to go, you can get away with it. But here's the thing, his little defenses aside, photo collections from 2018 and 2019 insists that there was actually a child present and the child performed with the adults during their little dance routine in 2018. He supported a group that had one of these kids being a part of this sexualized sexual excitement performance, and that's all fine. But when it's drag, suddenly the state government needs to get involved. What do you think?
Yeah, this is so stupid. This is a revelation that you are 100% undeniably like a crazy fundamentalist. When you start writing the law, you should realize that there's no way to write it to be not bigoted and accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. In order for them to accomplish the goal they actually wanted to accomplish, they had to contradict the thing we saw him say at the beginning of that, which is, I'm not accosting the whole community. He would have had to explicitly say LGBTQ. Yeah,
it's 100%. It's all, they don't mean any of this. They're all fine with this stuff. It's just that now it lines up with, oh, I guess this is our new culture war thing. Okay, I guess I'm against the thing that I've always been a fan of and still plan on participating in. Anyway, with that said, that's all the time we have for the first hour of the show. Thank you everyone who's been joining us. There is more to come in the aftermath though, so don't go anywhere. We are going to be throwing away some garbage people of the week. Hope to see you there. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Iadarola. I'll see you soon.